All right, here we are for another These Days. This is Volume 6. And to pique your interest, I had done one about 42 minutes long, and I had to pitch it. It was just too virulent. I got to watch myself. All right, lately, for whatever reason, there seems to be this campaign on to have me have Alan Watt on again. You know, and I don't know what's going on out there, but I get a feeling that there's a lot of new listeners who probably are mainlining the Patriot networks and don't understand what's gone on before, especially with my feelings towards them and the reasons why. So I guess that's it. But with this recent campaign, or whatever it is, and of course I'm not going to talk to Alan again, was probably built, I guess, on this guy who called into Alan's show or whatever, and I don't know. Let's go listen to this clip, okay?
I think I might have miscommunicated, and then I'll let you run. What I'm trying to figure out, reading between the lines, and I'm sure a lot of other people are too, is if you've been on, for example, Vyzygoth's show, and you haven't been on since, can we assume that there was a problem there and that he might not be a real person?
I don't know. I know some people have been on some Christian shows, and because I wouldn't go along with their particular part in the agenda, and there's a lot of fake Christian shows out there. I should say they're fake Christian shows. There's no doubt about it. They do have their agenda. I know a lot about them that I can't say on air. But I know that some shows, I can't say that about Vyzygoth, so I don't really know why he hasn't got back.
Okay. Because I would think that he would want you to be back on with your wealth of knowledge, but I haven't heard anything about that. So we're left to assume that if you left, I'm not speaking for everyone, but people who follow this stuff closely, then we assume that there was a falling out and that maybe he isn't real, he's a CIA, whatever. But you're saying that's not the case.
I don't know. I just never heard from him again. And I think he is a Christian. But I think he also has some background with CIA or FBI or something. But I don't know the whole story. I know that with Red Ice, a consortium who's well-funded from the British side, who threatened to get me off the air when I said I wouldn't join them, did put pressure on Red Ice, who entered into a business pact with them, and that was part of the agreement, was to get me off their show.
Well, thank you, Alan.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, now, let's set the record straight. Alan has always been a gentleman. He's always comported himself well. No, never stepped me for an interview or anything like that. So let's understand that. But a couple things. One, and I said this before, and I don't want to run them down anymore. Okay? I mean, I've said it in emails, and I'm not going to write about it anymore. Actually, having to address this angers me more than anything that Watt did in my eyes. But he, spent a lot of time talking about the negatives of the Patriot networks and of Alex Jones in particular. And that's why it's so rich when he and Alex are all sudden fast buddies. To me, that's a breach of character. I think it's hypocritical. I just believe he went over to the other side because I am no fan of the Patriot networks, and I've been around them for quite some time, and that's the reason why. Now, many of you have not heard this. I addressed this back in last November about the Patriot networks and such. I'm not going to do it anymore. If you really want a show about it, I'll give you a show about it. Okay? So, about Alan, I was disappointed. And people say, well, it's about more exposure. I say it's about the money. I think he was getting fine exposure, being on a lot of shows and also running his own shows off, Cutting Through the Matrix. Is there more exposure with the networks? Yeah, to a certain extent, as long as you're playing to what everybody wants to hear, which that would never happen with me. Because the Patriots couldn't take the fact that I'm telling, the Constitution is a fairy tale, and the Founding Fathers and the God-breathed country. How long do you think that would take, huh? Okay, so they're going to tell you just what they want you to hear, because it's about the money. It's always about the money. Networks are about the money. You don't go on a network not to make money. And let me give you an example. In the old days, and first of all, any of you who are listening to this, and any of you who have even grandparents, have never known a free press. Perhaps in the 19th century, when papers were funded by those who subscribed or paid, their nickel at the, or gave it to the newsboy in the corner, then you could have a free press. But once advertising started to go more the big companies and corporations' way, then they start the whole sway over the news. And the foundations, most precisely Rockefeller and Carnegie, told major newspapers back in the beginning of the 20th century, say maybe around, the date is out there somewhere, say 1915 or so, whatever. This is the way it goes, and everybody got it. And then when it went to radio and TV, the same thing happened. So there's never been a free press because corporations have funded this, and they want their pound of flesh. Same thing with the Patriot networks. They can only survive if they have listeners, and they can show this to their advertisers, and the advertisers will go on, so hopefully you people will buy stuff. And what I'm accusing the networks of are definitely creating crises, every week, like a soap opera, to get you to come back tomorrow, and on Friday to get you to come back on Monday, and they just create this crap, man. And I'll give you an example, okay? I mean, how many times did I hear, and I listened from about 2000 through 2004, and I just had enough. And I've never been back since. I heard, there's going to be a coup in the military, coup in the military. Well, hello. All right, and this chatter. Oh, I hear chatter. And Dave and Joyce are the worst of this. I heard chatter. It never comes out to anything. Never. How many times do I have to hear that there's another fleet leaving for the Mediterranean, and this is really it? This is like the third or fourth fleet that left. Oh, and the next one, this is the one I love the most. Chinese troops on the border. Don't you think, after all this time, if there were Chinese troops on the border, that people would be able to get down there with a telephoto and take shots of them and also fix it geographically so we knew that the Chinese troops were really in Mexico or just across the Rio Grande? It never happens. Why? Because it's bullspit. Okay? It's bullspit. And they run this crap by you guys all the time, and you eat it up. You got to have a crisis to come back and listen. And they'll falsify it, manufacture it, do whatever they have to do to get you to come back and listen. And it's baloney. All right, now, with Alan, okay? Like I said, I contacted Alan because I heard an interview he had done with Jackie Patriot, and she's pathetic. I'm sorry, she's just pathetic. And I'm listening to this guy talk. I'm like, I really like to talk to him. So I contacted him, and we did it. But the thing is, when I talked to Alan, it was always about something that was, I thought, different than what he was speaking to in other shows. Now, there was a time when I used to have every guest on that was on everywhere else to get credibility, okay? So I had Stanley Monteith on. I had people on who had their own shows on GCN. There was no RBN back then. And the other networks, I have no idea what they were doing anyway. So that made me, credible because I had Stanley on, or I had Fetzer on, or I had someone on. But then in 2004, I got to the point where it's like, what am I doing, man? Am I running a horse race with somebody? These people are so heard or oversaturated at times. It's like, why am I having them on? Just to say I had them on? To put that in my list of guests, which I've never put up since I brought down Vyzygoth.com website. I want to talk to people who people don't hear. And that's what I look for. And I think it's most interesting because you know what? Those people are really very good guests. They're very accommodating, and they have a hunger. The other ones, man, they just do it because it's like, yawn. They're so used to doing it, and they flip out the same answer. So why do I want somebody on who's on somewhere else? And Alan has got plenty of exposure now. Why do I want Alan on? He's on, 3 times in Cutting Through the Matrix and stuff. And the other thing is, we only talked about stuff that I thought was different than he had spoken to elsewhere, and that's okay. And there came a time when that basically was coming to an end. And then when he flipped to RBN, it was like, yeah, okay, that's it. Now, a lot of you people are really mesmerized by him. He's a very glib speaker. You got to love his accent. That culture creation is a great subject. But, you people who listen to this stuff all the time, I don't know how you do it. People who listen to Emery, how can you listen through all these years of Islamo-fascist stuff? God, are you serious?